P5 coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center. In this program, a presentation of Bet365. I'm Sakaris, he's Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson. Hitting switches, conducting things with intern Jaden Teja. We've got a big show planned for you today on this sunny, glorious Friday in the city of Vancouver. Hope you're taking great advantage of the weather and all the outdoor activities before us now.
It's like spring arrived without much of a transition. Like, I can't believe we're wearing shorts already. Like, it's that nice outside. It's fabulous. God, our city looks great.
Today is my first shorts venture this year.
Yeah, I wore them yesterday around the house and stuff, but I wasn't.
Around the house is different. I mean, out. Yeah. Anyways, great weather.
Oh, just amazing.
There have been a few late afternoons recently where I've been sitting on my deck doing a little reading or out and around in kits where I've thought to myself, God, what I'd give for a 7 o'clock Canucks playoff game right now, huh? Where you have that just marvelous day in the sunshine, you take advantage of Vancouver, all of it, and then you settle in for a high-stakes hockey game at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
It was so glorious last year. They're so much fun. I just love the city when the home team is in the playoffs. There's nothing like it.
It's too bad.
It really is.
Alas.
Yeah, alas.
And hey, that's why we've been acclaiming all these other teams that filled the void.
Oh,
good on you.
Fantastic. Like Sunday, go about, have yourself a great day. Go to the Warriors game at 6.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, go out, have yourself a great day. Go to the Whitecaps game at 6:30. Abby's going to be back at home next week with a playoff game.
Yes.
That's fun.
Yes.
Vancouver Canadians. Like, what a week of weather for the baseball team, huh?
Yeah.
They've done really well. This is only their second homestand. And to be playing before these sorts of days, amazing. Our Cerny Mitsubishi poll question today is a change of ownership what the Canucks need most. You can vote yes. You can vote no. Do so at the Sakaris and Price X and YouTube channels. We asked this because a little bit of a storm unleashed yesterday where Nick Kyprios, who broadcasts with the Fan 590 Toronto and writes for the Toronto Star, mused about hearing that the Canucks might be for sale. Patrick Johnson, our friend who joins us on Thursdays from the Province and Post Media, follows up with the story in the Bugle today where, and I'll read this phrase, we're going to talk about the article a little more at length and in detail and properly contextualized, but PJ says, despite the on-background denials from the team, several league sources have said they'd heard the team is for sale. And as Patrick goes out, mentions in his story, and what is just really true, not just about this scenario, but in life, not to quote WWE superstars of the past, but everybody has a price, right?
Yeah. 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 Like,
Ted DiBiase rule applies.
Well, there's two fronts in which it can still very much be true. It's not for sale. There's no Century 21 sign outside. It's not advertised for sale, but as you say, yeah, the right price. And so there could be that one, or it could be, no, we're not selling the team. We're selling part of the team.
Yeah, we're selling an equity stake in Canucks Sports Entertainment.
So,
but look, and as PJ notes in his article, these rumors crop up every now and then with the Aquilinis.
Yeah.
There is so much that is there's so much that is unknown about their businesses because there's a structure of numbered companies and things like that. They're not publicly traded, so they're not forced to report like other companies do. Look, the one thing that has remained a constant through all of this is what happens when the patriarch of the family, Luigi Aquilini, passes on, and he's in his early 90s. Is there a clear delineation of assets at that time that delivers Francesco, his eldest son, the team, 100% his, the two other brothers get the other businesses? Or, and we have seen this a lot with sports franchises, recently with the Denver Broncos. You may remember their Canadian owner, Pat Boland, passed away, and all sorts of infighting in the family. That's just one recent example. Is it left for the brothers to figure it out, and then can they figure it out? Because the one thing is true, the one thing that is true, given the sports franchise valuation boom here, is that if you have multiple owners and one or several of those multiple owners, even if they're minority partners, want out, those are really big checks for the majority owner to write now.
Yeah.
Right? Like to buy out, if Francesco had to buy out his brothers from Canucks Sports Entertainment, whoa, that is a hell of a lot of money. So, we'll see what transpires when that day comes. But if you told me the Aquilinis were prepping and looking for an investor, or at least exploring the possibility of, is this at high value, or we've made our money here, it was a tremendous business deal for them. They got it for about $250 million 20 years ago. It is worth many, many times, 7-8 times over that now. So it's been an incredibly savvy business decision for them to buy the team. They thought it was a sleeping giant, and they were 100% right.
And I wonder, all sports franchises have had this incredible period of growth here in the digital age, and yet I wonder, Matt, if that curve continues on the steep rate that it has been. Our economy seems to be at a real stalemate. And I don't even just mean because of the political and, the tariffs and all that sort of stuff. I just don't know that there's much more room for this exponential growth that we have seen, given, there's only so much time in the day for people to consume what is out there now. The digital world exploded content, and the competition for that attention can only be parsed so much. So I don't know that, what they saw from $250 million to maybe $2 billion now.
Yes.
It's not like if they wait that same amount of time, it's all of a sudden going to be $6 billion.
Mm-hmm. Two schools of thought on this. That number one, sports, and particularly live sports, is experiential. And that is what consumers are going to look for as they go forward, because we spend enough time on our screens consuming content that we enjoy. We do actually want to get out of the house and have an experience, and live sports produces that. The other school of thought is that young people today live in a world of niche interests, that we don't have campfires like we used to in the past. When you only had 13 channels on television and your local radio and your local newspapers and magazines, as you say, it was not this fragmented content world now. So that young people have grown up in a world now that is not quite as populous for what were the big campfires back in the day, like pro sports.
Yeah.
And so that when young people get into their 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s and have the disposable income to be the season ticket subscribers of the future, will they invest in pro sports like their parents and grandparents did?
Yeah. Is the culture going to be there still?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know the answer of it either.
I don't think anybody really knows the answer, but there's a lot of different reasons to theorize why it might not be.
As for the poll, I voted yes, and the sooner the better. Francesco has not been a good owner for this team. There's a ownership. It's funny because sports fans, and I see it today in the comments, sports fans, some are just ignorant. Some just don't want to go through the exercise. Their brains can't handle it, or they don't want to consider it. But the three most important things in any sports organization are ownership, ownership, ownership. And the people who are close to pro sports franchises or have worked in pro sports franchises or in leagues all know this. The owner has the most influence on the organization and its operations. On the sports operations side, on the game presentation side, on the content. Think of any subsection of a pro sports franchise, and the owner is setting the tone there, either because they're involved in the day-to-day, they have likes, they have dislikes, they have no-go zones, they have things they want to prioritize, promote, or because they hire the people who do all of that. And that eventually everybody is reporting up to the owner. We've had an owner who has been quite interested in being involved in the actual hockey operations side of things, quite interested in being involved in the personal lives of players and coaches and things like that, and who quite clearly views it as a year-to-year, let's get into the playoffs proposition, as opposed to providing the big picture vision of we got to do everything we can to win a Stanley Cup, even if that means short-term pain. He is not interested in short-term pain. He is second-generation money. He has gotten what he has wanted when he has wanted most of his life. He is not accustomed to hearing no. And to me, that shows in the leadership he has provided for Canucks Sports Entertainment.
You've only lived here under Aquilini ownership, correct?
Yeah.
So what you missed was the prior owners.
The Griffiths.
Nope.
Oh, McCaw.
Orca Bay.
Yeah.
Was an ownership group that was not seen and was not heard. And guess what? Everybody had a problem with that too.
Well, and here's the thing. To be fair, you do prefer a local owner to an abroad owner. And you prefer that because theoretically the local owner is more invested in the community. But secondly, that the community holds that local owner to better account. People here treated John McCaw like his name was a four-letter word.
Yes.
But did that matter to him down in Seattle? Like they weren't talking Canucks hockey and how he was screwing things up down in Seattle in the circles that he ran in.
Here's the thing too, that was the non-cap era. So in the cap era, where it's not just how much money are you willing to fork over, because there is a cap on it. You can only get into so much trouble with you're not spending enough money on hockey ops, that is. Now, there's practice facilities and all that sort of crap in which it involves investment. But as we've seen with this ownership group too, you can just turn to the ticket sales and ask the fans to pay for it anyhow. My point is, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer as to how an owner should behave. We have seen it here. We've seen it elsewhere in sports. Involved owners can have some measure of success. Uninvolved owners can have a measure of success.
Hey, Blake, when they're involved and things go well, it's called great leadership.
Right.
When they're involved and things go poorly, it's called meddling.
Right. And you can show that paradox as well on the other side of an uninvolved owner. He's letting the people he's hired do the work. He doesn't care. He's absent. So again, you can sort of spin it in any one direction. And for those that are saying, hey, the one constant over the last 15 years of chaos is the owner. Well, it's not quite 15. I can give you a dozen for sure, dozen years. But you're also erasing the fact that he was the owner during what was maybe the heyday, truly. And other teams went to the Stanley Cup final. Another team went to the seventh game of a Stanley Cup final, but didn't have the sustained excellence that the 2010, 2011, and 2012 teams had. And that was still the same owner. So, hey, I certainly don't like the character of ownership. Certainly don't like the micro behaviors of how he conducts his hockey business, and on second hand how he conducts other business as well. But would I just like to see that? Yes. Is it a necessity for the Vancouver Canucks to have success? The answer to that question, that specific question, is no, because we've got proof. 2 kicks at the can to win a Stanley Cup under this ownership. They can be the owners of a successful team. But a change in recent behavior, that's probably needed for sure.
So, look, they're local, and I do think they care deeply about the Vancouver Canucks and their success. They haven't necessarily abided by the notion of a local owner is accountable to the community. Of course, one first needs shame to have that to happen, but people kick them around as piñatas, and for the most part, they stay silent. The one thing you have to give the Aquilinis is that they have invested in the hockey product. Typically, most years spending to the cap. In many of those years, spending a lot more down at the AHL level as well. And more recently, with a pretty beefy front office here under Rutherford, right? Remember, there was a time we were talking about how lean the front office was. Well, now it is anything but lean. So you absolutely have to give them that. They have financed the team appropriately, and to the best of our knowledge, have deep enough pockets for this to continue to go on. Now, I can understand why people are now looking at it going, what's going on there? Took to the last minute to offer Tocchet a contract that would suffice. Nickel and diamond, a top prospect like Tom Wielander. Haven't signed any college or European free agents, to my knowledge. We're slow to replace the seats at Rogers Arena, and of course the practice facility. And I saw Kevin Woodley was talking about this week, and it stands to reason. We've seen this out of the Aquilinis before. But Woodley's point is, they've gone around to potential partners and basically said, hey, we'll put our logo on it. That'll be our contribution. Don't you want to do business with the Vancouver Canucks? But, you're going to have to pay for it. I can understand the Canucks brand means something. I can understand feeling like you have some degree of leverage and could lean on a potential partner. But so far have been unsuccessful. And as Blake has been saying for several weeks now, when you own one of these franchises, there is the responsibility to invest in it and make certain things that are standard industry practice available in your organization. And to date, a practice facility has not yet risen to the level of importance for the Aquilini family that they are going to get a deal done by hell or high water.
This is not like most businesses where you hope that your patrons will just pay the bills for everything. There's a high risk involved in owning a sports franchise. It requires some capital. It just does. Let me ask you this, though. Mm-hmm. This is an important part of this equation. Do you think Jim Rutherford has autonomy? Do you think Jim Rutherford is told often by ownership what to do?
I think for the most part, I think Rutherford and Alvin, for the most part, have autonomy. I think clearly Jim thought he could get a practice facility deal done and had a more willing boss to get that done when he first started talking about it. I think Alvin got his first bout of Aquilini interference this year at the trade deadline when he was absolutely told, no steps back. We are not trading off Besser and Suter and Forbert and guys who are going to make this team weaker down the stretch and miss the playoffs. We want to get to the playoffs. Make sure you conduct your trade deadline accordingly.
And it's possible that happened. We don't know that happened. No one has said that directly.
Well, Alvin did say no steps back, but No, he did not
We don't
say
know that
ownership.
came.
Ownership told me that but I mean that's
And the practice facility isn't
that's
hockey
par for
ops.
the course, Blake. I mean we've seen this before, right, with Benning and others.
And the practice facility in and of itself is not hockey ops per se.
Well,
it aids hockey ops.
If Rutherford's running the file, it's hockey ops.
Under that strict definition, yes, but it doesn't pertain to who's on the ice playing hockey for you.
Not right. Yeah.
Directly.
GB Packers 55 in the YouTube chat. Massive fan of this pod. You guys appreciate what Matt and Blake have always brought to the market for all these years. Now, looking forward to many years to come. Oh, very kind of you to say. And a Packers fan, too. They normally dislike me.
Right, yeah.
Wow. Building bridges here across the NFC North divide. Stewart says NHL needs to hold the Aquilinis to a standard regarding a practice rink. Roberto and Paulo need to be active on it, or a sale must happen. I say Chip Wilson. Whoa. Our super chats are always open there on YouTube. Half proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation. I don't know if Chip Wilson, the Lululemon Grand Poobah, is a hockey fan or not, or if he has the desire to jump in to the sports business. I've seen people muse about Jimmy Paterson. Look, if Jimmy wanted to buy the Canucks or any other franchise, it would have happened decades ago. The guy's in his 90s. In fact, someone told me he just recently bypassed David Thompson as richest guy in Canada.
I was reading that news article. Yeah.
So, yes. So, but it's a great exercise. And I've covered a fair bit of sports business in my career in several markets that, you start with the local rich guys and you build out. I'm not sure there are local rich guys outside of Tom Ghilardi who would want to buy the Vancouver Canucks. Of course, Mr. Ghilardi took a run at them once before in what he thought was a partnership with the Aquilini, and turns out no, and went off and bought the Dallas Stars and has done a pretty darn good job, actually, in owning and managing that franchise. The brothers not getting involved is an interesting one. I don't think Roberto has ever sought the exposure, celebrity, whatever you want to call it, of being a sports franchise owner, because you can run a very successful business, be a billionaire in a field that nobody cares about, and for the most part, you are not going to be in the media. Your face isn't going to be known all over town. That is something that comes with the territory of owning a sports franchise. So I think that's been the case for Roberto. In the case of Paulo, everything I've ever heard about the guy is just he's got a heart of gold. He wants to take the resources, the ample resources they have, and do as much good as he can for people, special needs children in particular. So that has sort of been his mantle within the family, taking up their philanthropy side of things. Roberto has mostly been on the finance side, as I understand it, running the Aquilini Investment Group, and Francesco has the hockey club. Another super chat. I would love to grab a beer with you guys one day to hear the inside stories you guys have on the owner and can't share on the show.
Someday. Perhaps.
I think that's going to be more than a beer, Scott. It's going to take several beers to get me there. Anyways, you voted yes or no?
I'll vote no on just like the pure reading of the question, because I do. Can this team have success with this owner? Yes, I do think the answer is yes. Would I love to have a change of ownership? Yes, but those are two different questions.
Hey, if this management group fails next year, and Rutherford is just, you know what, I'm 77, forget about it, I'm done. 76. Is the next call to Gillis? Mike, can we try and rekindle what we had here 15 years ago?
Does Mike Gillis answer the phone?
I think he answers. Yeah, he absolutely answers the phone.
Oh, okay.
I think Mike has a lot of regard for Luigi Aquilini as a self-made guy. Like, new country, not exactly even fluent in the language, and goes out and builds what he built.
I think Mike also has a great regard for his current lifestyle.
I believe that to be the case as well.
And does not
But
want to
I
crimp
I could see him being up for one more challenge. And as for Stewart's suggestion, I had thought that some too. Like, I know Gary publicly isn't going to tell these guys how to run their business, but boy, in the back channels, the NHL head office is quite involved with franchises when they feel like they're teetering in the wrong direction. This is very much the David Stern blueprint from the NBA, and of course, Gary, way back when, was learning at the hip of David Stern, late NBA commissioner. When things were going poorly with an NBA franchise, Stern had like a SWAT team, Blake. Like, there would be a group of people from the NBA head office that would go to the market and sit down with the owner and with the president and with the head of basketball operations and be like, okay, let's see everything you're doing here, and we can provide guidance and counsel on best practices, and we really suggest you adopt them because this is what Mr. Stern wants. I don't dispute that the National Hockey League does the same with franchises that they feel are getting off kilter. And I would love to know if Gary and Bill in the NHL head office has had any kind of communique, instructions, advice for the Vancouver Canucks about a practice facility. It may take something like that to ultimately get a practice facility done.
I just wonder also, has there been any calls on guys really noisy over there?
Yes.
Really. And for those, I was, I've already made culpable on this before, but if you missed it, I resisted Matt's theory that this happened, this secret police of the league and the guiding hands for coaching hires, management hires more so.
Like, there are GMs in the chairs today because Gary and Bill said to the owner,
this is the
you
guy.
ought to hire this guy.
Is the guy for you.
Well, Ron Francis in Seattle was one of them.
I resisted the idea of this. It is absolutely the case. I've heard it from more people now than Matt. So it took that, folks. It took more than just Matt telling me this.
He didn't want to believe me. He didn't want
didn't want to give you the
to
credit
have
for
to
it.
say, you know what, Matt, you were right. But
it's also come down. It's also come down that people have disobeyed the league, hired somebody against their. And they have come to pay the price in some way, shape, and form down the road.
Oh, very, very
It is within your best interest to listen to the secret police.
Yeah, like if Gary and Bill tell you, you really need to do this, and you don't do that, that's not the end of the matter for Gary and Bill. That is going to come back to you at some point later in your tenure.
Now, I haven't heard this part, but for instance, if you were to tell me, again, I have not heard this. This is from my brain only. If you had told me that the cap recapture for Roberto Luongo maybe happened because maybe they weren't a huge fan of an agent becoming a GM at a major Canadian market.
Yep.
I would probably believe that.
Yep.
Those are
and
the
I
kinds
don't
of
think
things.
Francesco is one of Gary's favorites.
No. Little rogue.
Yeah.
That might be the most enduring part.
Yeah. Well, Gary hates several things. He hates owners who speak to the media, even if it's off the record and on background. And I do believe Francesco talks to some. He also dislikes owners who are out there, like, publicly. Like, for instance, I think Gary's ideal owner is a guy who, when he wants to let loose and have a few drinks, does so at a very fancy, exclusive private club. Not in Yaletown.
No.
If you're hitting the clubs in Yaletown, Gary's not fussy about that. Our friends at Surrey Mitsubishi giving you $500 off a new or pre-owned vehicle. Get yourself to the lot. Tell them we sent you. Got to mention Sakarison Price. And, of course, if you're out there shopping for offers and you feel like you got a great deal from someone, bring it to Surrey Mitsubishi. They will beat any offer. More value, more savings, save more, score more, save more. Visit 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey. Top story today, the coaching by Yellow Dog Neighborhood and, of course, Foolish Winery. The coaching carousel begins. Former Canucks assistant Former Pittsburgh Penguins head coach Mike Sullivan has accepted the job with the New York Rangers. That happened pretty quickly, huh, Blake? It's almost like, it's almost like everybody knew this was going to be the case before Mike Sullivan resigned as head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So he's on Broadway now. He was the best coach available, at least by resume, with a couple of Stanley Cups on the, well, I guess Quenneville has 3, I suppose. You can make that call. But amongst active NHL coaches, he was the belle of the ball. So the Rangers get their man. I hope when he has his presser, he's asked, because he's from Boston, Mike, who are you rooting for, Knicks or Celtics? So Sullivan replaces Peter Laviolette behind the Rangers bench. Julian Breesbaugh, the general manager in Tampa, says John Cooper is staying put. The lawyer from Prince George, winner of 2 Stanley Cups as well, as head coach.
And sometimes the vote of confidence is it's just a cover-up. It's not in this case.
This one seems real.
Seems real. He says, not only are we happy to have him back next year, but beyond. Like, it's our intention to stick with John Cooper.
Yeah, and let me put myself on ease and it's all right. Cooper's resume is better than Sullivan's. Cooper has a 4 Nations. He beat Sullivan at the 4 Nations. Yeah. So any hopes of British Columbian John Cooper coming back home, not happening, at least for this coming year. Then there's word out of Anaheim, and I've got to hand it to the angry ball of hate there, Pat Verbeek. He seems to be a little further down the road than some other teams, although we don't know all the machinations of these vacancies. Anaheim is interviewing Joel Quenneville and have apparently already spoken with David Carl, the head coach at Denver University, U.S. National Junior coach, and Jay Woodcroft, former Edmonton Oilers coach. So you have names already interviewed and attached to the Anaheim Ducks, and Pierre LeBrun says there's more as well, that it's going to be a pretty wide net.
Which leads us to question now, if you're the Vancouver Canucks, are you missing out by not being a little bit more active yourself right now?
I don't think you're missing out yet, but I do think you needed to know from Talkit when you knew. You couldn't let that go much later than it did. And I also think, and Rutherford told us last week, that he started to get a sneaky suspicion to, okay, but he's not committing. Right there and then. One of the responsibilities you have as a team president or a general manager is to know who's next. To have your list of guys who you would hire when this current coach expires. And sometimes that's firing, sometimes that's contract coming up and not being renewed. In rare cases, it's the coach resigning or walking away. So I would suspect that Jim Rutherford, as a cagey old NHL executive and veteran, had that list. I'm going to suspect that Patrick Alvin has been well schooled in that. And I would suspect that they have a list, a pool of candidates who they have always said to each other, okay, if anything ever happened with Rick, here are the guys that we would target, or here are the guys that we would want to interview to make our choice from. So I don't think they're behind the 8 ball by any means just yet, Blake. Rutherford told us Sullivan wasn't coming, that he wanted to stay east, so he was a non-candidate. All the other vacancies are still out there, but it's going to be healthy competition. Like, for example, where the Boston Bruins turn now. Have to think there was reporting they wanted to bring Mike Sullivan back, right? Massachusetts guy, former Boston Bruins head coach 20 years ago. So Boston's moving on to Plan B. And then, and this is a really interesting question. So Manny Malhotra is a candidate here. Internally, of course, coaching the Abbotsford Canucks. We've talked about how he's auditioning for the job. Well, the thing is, the more games that Abbotsford wins and the further they advance in the Calder Cup playoffs, theoretically that should enhance Manny Malhotra's candidacy here. But I mean, you're not waiting till June to hire a head coach, I don't think, right?
And you're not distracting him with negotiations during a playoff run.
You wouldn't think so. I mean, it could be done with his representative. You would probably want to minimize the intrusion. I don't think doing a formal interview would be
no
out of order.
You'd probably just have to do it on what you know of the guy already.
To some degree. Like, you're not calling him up on game day and saying, okay, so if this were to happen, your approach would be.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see what the Abbotsford Canucks success or eventual playoff exit does to the timeline when it comes to Manny Malhotra. And they, of course, won last night in Coachella Valley to take a 1-0 series lead in their second round. And then, of course, look, all the reporting is that Tocchet was offered $5 million times 5 years. That was sort of the last gasp, step up to the table and make the best financial offer we can from the Canucks. At least that's been the reporting, to try and keep Tocchet when they sensed he was not 100% committed to returning. But I don't think, like, that's the budget for coaches. Like, I don't think Peter Laviolette or anyone else, unless it is a very big name, could expect that kind of compensation from the Vancouver Canucks. That was the Rick Tocchet price.
Yeah, that's we
like,
know
Manny
you're
Malhotra's not getting that. Jay Woodcroft isn't getting that. Like,
that's we know you're hesitant. You're our guy. We really like you.
Yes.
Here's the price.
Right. And so then the question becomes, when you see them nickel and diming in some odd areas like Tom Wielander, like no college or European free agents, like the original offer or the previous offers or starting points with Tocchet, are they willing to pay top dollar to attract someone? Or are they now going to look to save some money on the coach because the guy they really wanted turned them down? I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's a really interesting one. I would suspect it's a case-by-case scenario whereby if Rutherford and Alvin go, wow, like, we loved Penguins assistant Mike Vellucci. What an interview, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's a career assistant in the NHL. Yeah, he's had AHL success. You're not paying that guy top dollar.
No.
If Laviolette comes in and blows them away in the interview and they really want Peter Laviolette, he's going to be more expensive than Mike Vellucci. So we'll see what ownership says on all that and whether or not, see if there's detect any influence. Of course, we all remember John Tortorella got in a room with the Aquilinis, blew them out of the water, and he was the head coach against the advice of hockey operations. It lasted a year.
Yeah.
We remember when Francesco ultimately had to fire Jim Benning and Travis Green. He went out and hired Bruce Boudreau on his own. So, salary, think going to be big here as well. We know Adam Foote will not be back. His contract is up. I imagine Yogi Svechkovsky is also not going to be back because the head coach, for the most part, gets to hire his staff. From time to time, you will have the organization feel strongly about a given assistant and really push that on the head coach, or in some cases it's even a term, a condition of taking the job. Okay, we're willing to hire you, but we really want you to take this guy on the bench because we think he's fill in the attributes. So we'll see where this goes. And I'm going to see about a yellow dog this weekend.
You're going to see just a single, though? You're only going to have one?
Maybe.
Might be more.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get to a C's game at some point this weekend, and they have the Yellow Dogs down there in left field.
Well, Yellow Dog's got a new beer for you to try in collaboration with the Casey Clark show there. The Honky Tonk Blonde Ale. Bright brew, light malt backbone, crisp finish. Sounds about right for today, doesn't it? Grab a can, turn up the volume, let the Blonde Ale be the soundtrack to your next adventure. It's the Honky Tonk Blonde Ale from Yellow Dog.
Jim Rutherford has released a letter to Canucks fans. Once upon a time, Francesco Aquilini penned letters to the fan base.
On the regular in the late teens and early 20s.
For a number of years there, but I suppose you have a president of hockey operations now. This now falls under his domain. Look, most of this letter, and for those of you on YouTube, Mike's got it on the screen there. Most of this letter is a recap of everything we've heard from Jim in the last two press conferences, how, they had high hopes, expectations, season went wrong, we're now a team in transition, our defense and goaltending is strong, yada, 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 we'll do the work. The sentence that caught both of our eyes is the lead sentence on the second page where he reveals to Canucks fans that players have been, quote, directed to approach their training with increased urgency and intensity to ensure we start off on the right foot next season. Translation:
Petey, are you reading this? Elias. Like, he's not doubled down. He's not tripled down. What's like a dozen down? He's dozzled down?
To the power of 12.
Yes. Like, we get it, Jim. I think he gets it.
Well, but there were a couple others, Blake, that I don't think they loved their summers last year.
Yeah.
Did not have big summers. Had small summers.
Like, but imagine, like, it sort of comes off
mid-size summers.
We've told the players we'd like to be good next year. Yeah. So
we've read the players the riot act, and if we're bad next year because they're not in shape, then don't blame us. It's on them. Hey, more honesty from Straight Talk Jimmy. We like that. We like that.
Badgering.
Yeah.
I heard you the first time, Mom.
Mm-hmm. Another comment from the YouTube chat. The audience member here is B, if I'm not mistaken.
B.
Okay. The letter B. My grand prediction for Vancouver sports landscape over the next 10, 15 years, Whitecaps sold and build a new soccer-specific stadium at the P&E grounds. Canucks sold with Aquilini keeping Rogers Arena and its land in the sale, with the new owners building a brand new stadium on the site of the Pacific Coliseum. Canucks back on Renfrew. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. A lot of happenings there. I would not hold my breath on that one.
No.
And we got into this with Patrick Johnson yesterday when we were talking about the Canucks and whether they'd be for sale. It is a particularly complicated transaction for someone to buy the Vancouver Canucks, because a new owner would almost certainly want the arena, because the arena is where the profits are made.
Except now the arena has two towers sticking out of it.
Right.
So I don't even know, Matt. And like,
I think there's a structure whereby the Aquilinis could keep the towers and the new owner have the arena and the team.
That would be a funny line drawn, because
it's a very funny line.
are fully integrated, those two towers with the
no question. Yeah. But the land itself too, Blake.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you?
Like, this is
I mean, like there are property lines even on a situation like that. Like, how would they carve that up with the city? Even
I don't know. Needless to say, the moment they built those towers, they created a more complex exit strategy out of the Canucks and Rogers Arena. Or maybe the new owner's just rich enough they take over.
They take it all,
they buy it all,
and the price just goes that much higher, right? Like, if that's the case, if it's worth what's with the rumors, it's worth $2 billion now.
Well, 1.8 or something like that, 1.7.
So those towers, we talking
the towers and the land and the arena, like, you're into the billions and billions.
Yeah.
So. But I don't think the day is coming where the Pacific Coliseum is renovated and brought back up to NHL standard.
Until there's...
And the other thing is, outside of the people who live walking distance from the PNE, I don't think there are many people clamoring for the Canucks to play there as opposed to downtown.
17 days for the Whitecaps.
Public transit across the street.
17 days for the Whitecaps. You can get your fans there for 17 days. When you're talking, with the exhibition schedule, you're talking 45 dates. You need mass transit there right now. Can't wait around for that. And you think about all those fans pouring out of the SkyTrain on any given night to go watch the Canucks. Kazrak with a super chat. So, 9 years for another playoff game. in Vancouver. I mean, there are no guarantees in life, Kazrak. I think we'd both take the under on that prognostication. But yeah, there's no clear path here for the Vancouver Canucks.
Stanley Cup playoffs. And Canucks fans, we know it's been a tough couple of weeks. And last night it got tougher. Edmonton advances, Toronto advances.
Fairly predictable, and both would have been upsets.
I actually thought LA was going to get them. I was convinced of it at 2-0.
On sheer swings at the plate, yes, I could see them finally after four
but
tries.
Edmonton was a disaster down the stretch. The goaltending was a problem. LA was really playing well. Anyways, that coach's challenge for goaltender interference.
Does it cost him his job?
I wouldn't think so. He's not a Jack Adams finalist. That was announced today. Spencer Carberry in Washington, Scott O'Neill in Winnipeg, and Marty St. Louis in Montreal. I thought he had an outside chance of being that Jim Hiller. Port Alberni's Jim Hiller. I don't think it costs him his job because I think he's done a really good job since taking over as head coach. I would like to think he gets another year. I mean, this is a first-time NHL head coach who learned a very difficult lesson, I think, in Game 3 when they were...
And we still don't even know if that cost them the series. That would have just forced the game into overtime in the perfect sense.
Well, but, I mean, they lost that one and they lost the 3 subsequent. And they scored seconds into that.
My point is they might have lost anyway. They might have lost.
They may have, but Blake, they were up in the game and up in the series.
I get why it was a bad call. It was
a train wreck. Like somebody needed to grab him and muzzle him before he spoke to the officials saying, we'd like to challenge. I hope not. But it is a fireable offense.
You think so?
Well, you cost your team a playoff series.
You don't know that.
Well,
you don't know
your job as a coach. Wally was great at knowing this. You can't go out there and win the game as a coach. Your job is to minimize ways for your team losing the game.
Absolutely.
And he did not do that in that instance.
No one's debating that it was the wrong call. Absolutely was the wrong call, wrong time. He completely was out of his depth in that moment. But if it's only one moment, if that's the only thing you can point to.
Yes.
And
on balance, en masse, you would hope he gets another opportunity.
Yeah.
That would be fairness. The other thing about LA is there are some people wondering whether Rob Blake is going to be back as their general manager.
A lot of rumblings that is not going to be the case. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hiller may be more susceptible to a new boss coming in.
My guy, he made the big mistake.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's got an out. If there is a new guy there, he's got an out clause.
And here's the other thing I'd say. I would hope Hiller gets another opportunity if he is let go here.
Well,
because catastrophic mistake, but did a good job. Like there are guys who don't get good jobs who get.
Well, he ground out wins for sure.
And the home record.
But my God, they are not.
No, they are not aesthetically pleasing.
In the playoffs.
Although they tried to play offensive.
The playoffs, they were the most entertaining series on the first round, potentially.
I mean, I knew they were in trouble last night when we were on the golf course and someone in our group said, boy, 1-1 already, Kings and Oilers a few minutes in. And I'm like, LA, that is not the way you are winning these games against this team.
I walked in the door and my son said, every time I look at the screen, something crazy is happening.
It was a fun series.
It was.
It was. So it's over in 6. Edmonton beats LA for the 4th consecutive postseason. Vegas, I had high hopes that I would see a Game 7 Minnesota-Vegas because that had been a fun series too. But alas, it's over. The Golden Knights advance to face the Oilers, and that's a terrific second-round series. I mean, you and I have both talked about out-of-market game that we go out and find as like destination viewing have been the Vegas-Edmonton games in the last few years. They have played some humdingers.
That's a big boy series.
It sure is. And either team getting through that series can win the cup. God, I watch Edmonton. I know their depth stepped up last night. But I watch Edmonton some nights and I go, their star power is so elite that like just blatant, terrible holes that would sink any other team. They cover it up. They mask it up. So Edmonton, Vegas in round 2, and Minnesota becomes the first team in the Big 4 North American sports leagues to qualify for the postseason in 8 of 10 years and lose in the first round every single time. They get to the playoffs, they don't ever win a series. As I told you yesterday, as a longtime denizen of both cities, what happens in the Battle of Ontario is that the Leafs break Senators' hearts, and usually in Ottawa. And that was the case again last night.
And they won the overtime games. They were right there. The Senators were right there.
Yep.
But of course, here's the other thing: the Senators needed a playoff baptism. They were learning on the fly as a group what it takes to win in the playoffs.
Yes.
And some teams, like the Leafs, need multiple years at that college. It's not like it's a disappointment for the Senators, is my point. Like the Senators, but they were very competitive.
Mm-hmm. Leafs didn't just do a bachelor's there, Blake.
Oh, no.
It was a master's and a doctorate.
PhD.
But they're through against Florida, and that could be a fun series too.
Could be.
I'm looking forward much more to that series than Washington, Carolina. I don't know about you, and yes, this is a Canadian talking, and yes, this is a guy who is mostly neutral talking as well. I don't tend to have a big rooting interest, partisan interest. Mm-hmm. But I find, like, when we get a Stanley Cup playoffs where you're into round 2 and the markets are Raleigh and Washington, D.C. and South Florida, places where hockey isn't culture, places where it's a big story with a segment of the population, and in some cases a small segment of a population, but not a story that's taken over the town. Like, not a story that kids have been waiting for their entire childhood. Not a story where you go, oh, I hope Dad gets to see a Stanley Cup before he, those sorts of things.
Yes.
I just find like those series lose a little luster for me. Like, I know there are some people who will be behind Alex Ovechkin, fill your boots, not my cup of tea. But I don't find I have sentimentality or emotional connection to a series between two teams in the Sun Belt, or in this case, one Sun Belt, one Mid-Atlantic, where hockey isn't really culture. That's why I do sort of find myself rooting for the Canadian teams, because you know how much it means to Canadian cities.
I do like to see, if I can't personally touch the excitement, I like to sort of imagine what it would be like. And the truth matters, I haven't been to Raleigh, so if I saw celebrations in downtown Raleigh, it wouldn't really move me as much. But you know, I've been to every Canadian city. I know people in almost all the cities. So
yeah, exactly. That's it. You are kind of living vicariously through your friends,
whether it's conscious or not.
Yeah,
whether it's conscious or not, you can feel vicariously through them. Yeah.
Raleigh, incidentally, pretty underrated.
I've heard good things.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a chocolate block with great nightlife and restaurants and this, that, or the other thing, but they have like rose bushes everywhere downtown. They're very big on roses. They grow roses, so it's quite pretty. Yeah. And as I recall, by American downtown standards, clean, safe. Okay. Anyways, Marc-Andre Fleury retiring. Very nice send-off, very classy from the Golden Knights to stay on the ice and salute the Flower, as he calls it, a career, his final game for the Minnesota Wild. And yeah, he'll be going to the Hockey Hall of Fame. And we have our Masterton finalists with Landeskog, Monahan. I actually didn't write down the third guy.
Landeskog, Monahan, and Fleury.
Right, he is one. That's why I was mentioning Marc-Andre Fleury. Mm-hmm. What are you laughing at, Rogerson?
You missed your own segue.
I missed my own cue.
Right there.
Sorelli, Reinhart, Barkov, your Selke finalists. Nice nod for West Vancouver, Sam Reinhart. And Game 7, Colorado-Dallas on Saturday night. See, we said yesterday, great that you get 4 Game 6s on the same day. It's happened 4 years in a row, but you do actually need one of them to go to Game 7 if you're going to play on Saturday. We do get a game on Saturday, and that was a terrific game last night, too. The Stars and the Avalanche. Winnipeg, St. Louis tonight. You want a Game 7 there, because otherwise you may not get hockey on Sunday. Although somebody mentioned to me that maybe Capitals Carolina is going to start on Sunday.
Move on.
If they don't get a Game 7 in Winnipeg.
If Winnipeg wins, then they would do that. And that makes a lot of sense. I love that.
Abbotsford won, as we mentioned, 3-1 at Coachella in Game 1 of their second-round AHL series. Goals 65 seconds apart from Jet Wu and Danila Klimovich. They erase a 1-0 deficit. Guillaume Brisebois adds the insurance marker. And the Artie party was on. Gives up a goal in the first 2 minutes, and then Archer Shilovs with 29 saves consecutive. He's 3-1 in these playoffs. He continues.
Save percentage is up over almost 940 now in the playoffs.
So he continues to reestablish himself as the Canucks' number 3 organizational goaltender. They play again tomorrow, Game 2. Jeff's got you covered on RinkWide Vancouver post-game, and they're back home here. They could be back home here next week in Abbotsford, up 2-0 in their best-of-5 series. So good luck to Manny Malhotra.
Is this a big local story if they make it to the conference final?
I would say if they make it to the final.
To the final.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to take. Okay.
Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Greta. Fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away. Pre-game, post-game, steps from the arena and stadium districts. They got weekly drink specials. The smash burger is divine. Try it on the street food menu. And, of course, the arcade. So much fun at the arcade. 50 West Cordova. Greta, let the games begin. We're going to talk to Jeff Paterson, and then we're going to talk to Jeff Marek. As Rogerson always says, we only talk to Jeffs on Friday. If your name is not Jeff, you don't get into the
TGIJ. Thank goodness it's Jeff. They're both traditional J spellings, too. No Geoffs.
No, I know.
We only do
They both
Jeffs.
have similar colored hair, too. I mean, it's quite a thing.
Yeah.
Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. He's been so hot. I need to keep up here. I finally got a win last night because I had the Leafs.
It's good.
You had Edmonton, I think, didn't you?
No, I had L.A.
Great. I'll fire first. The 151st Run for the Roses tomorrow at Churchill Downs, the Kentucky Derby, the most famous horse race in the world. And look, here's the thing. I'm going to dig in tonight, do some research, look at past performances, but you don't need to know the Bayer speed figures to have some fun backing the ponies. And most people do that by the horse's name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blake, there's a horse in this race called Journalism. He's the favorite at 3-1. There's a horse in this race called Publisher at 20-1.
Really?
I am boxing Journalism and Publisher to finish 1-2 in either order. And that is my no deep dive, not even a shallow dive shot at the Kentucky.
Well, with
Derby.
freedom of the press under attack these days, my goodness. May they both podium. Should be a pretty rotational squad for the Whitecaps after the...
Is this where the Whitecaps
this week.
finally snap the streak? Like, is it just... We kept saying, is this a bridge too far for them? They've played a lot of soccer.
So much soccer.
So much traveling. Coming back from Miami, the longest trip you can make in MLS.
So they do get a chance to exhale starting after this game. Like, they're going to feel the effects for this game still. But the good news is, they don't have a ton of matches in the month of May, like a lot of teams. They do play midweek league matches, by the way, coming up in May. So that is around the corner. But they've got a couple of weeks here where they don't have to move. They don't get on a plane until May 15th, which is what they need.
Probably good.
Yeah, probably good. But it should be rotational, which means like a Daniel Rios anytime goal scorer at plus 140 is interesting. But I think Jaden Nelson, who came off the bench, I'm going to guess he gets a start this week. I'm going to go plus 175 as Jaden Nelson as an anytime goal scorer.
Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you from game props, player props, totals, money line. You can bet future series winners, conference champions, cup champions, so much more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Jeff Paterson coming up next. Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center. This next guest,
This guy.
appropriately brought to you by the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club, where he'll be shooting for the course record this summer. Spring preparations underway. Excited. Opening day 1 week away, May 9th, everybody. And now accepting online bookings for the entirety of the 2025 season. No need to wait. Get those times locked in. And if you have a group of 12 or more, the prime times fill up fast. Get on that. Get those tee times on hold. And tell them about your group. WhistlerGolf.com/groups. Follow on social at Whistler Golf. Jeff Paterson, our Canucks reporter, the host of RinkWide Vancouver, or Abbotsford, joins us in the Nation Network studio. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm here, but I would much rather be at Whistler Golf Club
Yes.
on a day like today.
Yeah.
Just looking at the video there again, it is spectacular if people haven't played it. So put it on your list and put it on your list this summer because it's not available.
Right, exactly. They'll be making redesign.
Yes, a
forward.
significant
Yeah, looking forward to it.
reconstruction next summer.
Looking forward to that. Okay, so it's our first opportunity to talk to you since the events of Tuesday with Jim Rutherford. What did you make of this presser, Jeff?
Yeah, look, I wasn't shocked by the news of the day. At the previous presser, when Jim Rutherford said, we're not going to force him to take the option, we don't want a guy that has his eyes elsewhere. The minute he said that, like, Jim should have come out swinging a giant red flag. To me, that right there suggested that they had some intel that Rick Tocchet maybe wasn't long for the job here. So I wasn't shocked that Rick Tocchet has elected to step away. As for Jim Rutherford, and unfortunately I had a medical appointment. I couldn't be in the room on Tuesday, but have watched the press conference start to finish, and he doesn't disappoint.
No.
He probably says a little too much, but in this business, we're not going to complain about that by any means. You know, there were a few things there. And look, I thought good for Jim Rutherford for sort of taking us behind the curtain a little bit, where he said that, you know, they had all these positive negotiations. They had talked about summer plans and all the things that they were going to do and training camp and adding to the coaching staff. But why weren't they getting to a resolution? And so, yeah, I mean, push came to shove ultimately. You know, it sounds by all the reporting that the organization had stepped up in a big way financially, both money and term. And so, again, I'm like a lot of people that think, all right, Rick Tocchet walked away because of the current situation, but also the future and a vision here and an opportunity to win. And he's a competitive guy. We know that. You know, I exchanged a text with Rick earlier in the week, and one of the things that he said, and I'm going to paraphrase because I won't get into the text, but he basically said, I poured everything into this job for 2.5 years. And I just think that tells you how much this past season took out of him. And so I guess I understand that there are greener pastures in terms of winning sooner elsewhere around the National Hockey League. And I do expect that Rick Tocchet will pop up with one of these jobs that is vacant around the National Hockey League.
The good news for the Canucks is there's only 32 spots, right? There's a finite number of these jobs, but there's a lot of them that are open this summer, Jeff. Do you think the Canucks are anywhere near the top of anybody's list of those vacancies, or are they settling for leftovers here?
Yeah, one has been filled now, and I think the dominoes start to fall. That Mike Sullivan, we all kind of figured it was down to 1 or 2 spots. It ends up being the Rangers. So now if you're Boston and you had designs on Sullivan, you're going to be looking to fill. So I do think we're going to start to see some of the dominoes fall pretty quickly here. Look, the outside hockey world sees the same things we do. There are all sorts of concerns, starting with the future of Quinn Hughes, but or maybe starting with the future of Elias Paterson. Take your pick. But beyond that, issues at center ice, the fact that the farm system isn't stocked with grade A prospects, it's going to be a while before they can build this thing back up into any sort of contender status. And that said, I think that, yeah, if you're a coaching candidate, and there are levels of candidates, we get that. But for the big names, I think they would be interested in opportunities elsewhere. And so it will be interesting to see ultimately how it all shakes out here. I know Jim Rutherford said that their phone was going to ring. He thought it was fairly attractive. He tried to make the joke about the practice facility that did not land at all. But whoever's coming in to coach isn't going to have a practice facility. We know that. Neither have the last bunch of coaches. So that's life here on the West Coast right now. But they'll make a short list, and they'll have a head coach when the season starts. That much we do know.
Yeah, for sure. They won't go coachless into the season. Many Canucks fans are saying this is such a bad look for the organization, Jeff, that Rick Tocchet would reject the Vancouver Canucks and ownership, management, roster, some combination thereof, all of the above. What kind of a setback in terms of the brand and the optics is this for you?
Yeah, it's another one. The brand's taken a beating here of late, and that's life. It is remarkable year over year from where they were to where they are right now, and so much of that hinges on the guy that wears number 40 and how quickly they can build it back up. But there is also the stumbling block of Quinn Hughes and his future here, and that's just the reality of the situation. And a new head coach is going to understand that. A new head coach is likely going to have Quinn Hughes to work with at least to start. We still don't know about EP40 and his future with the organization. But, yeah, it's not a great look. I don't think anybody could see it as anything but that Rick Tocchet had options. Now, he was out of contract. And so, in that regard, it's no different than a player. Like I saw people saying, oh, he quit on the Vancouver Canucks. Well, if that's your logic, then by extension, you got to think that Brock Besser is quitting on the Vancouver Canucks if he plays elsewhere next season. That's not how the hockey business works. You're either in contract or you're out of contract. If you're out of contract, you hold the cards. You get to control your future. And so I don't blame Rick Tocchet one bit. I enjoyed working with him from a media standpoint. I learned a ton about the game. And I've told you guys this before. What you see on camera is only a bit. That there were so many times that scrums broke down and he still stood in there for another 10 minutes holding court and going over strategy, and it was fascinating. And I couldn't get enough of it. So I'm going to miss that part of it. But ultimately, he made his decision, and now the Canucks find themselves looking for a fourth head coach in 4 years. And again, Jim Rutherford admitted that, yeah, that's difficult. It's difficult on the players. It's tough. Like, not that anybody's feeling sorry for guys like me, but you do want to be able to build a rapport with whoever you're dealing with on a daily basis. And so we'll start that process all over again. But I just feel for the veterans, the guys that have been here, not just Quinn Hughes and Elias Paterson and Thatcher Demko, but Tyler Myers and Connor Garland. Like, these guys have been through the ringer with this organization. And I think at some point, like, they just have to look elsewhere and think, like, it's incredible how smoothly some of these organizations run around the National Hockey League, and smooth is not a word that you would used to describe the Vancouver Canucks over the past few seasons.
They may get forced into one of these lanes just by virtue of the situation and the brand damage that you just talked about. But there's 3 lanes the Canucks could go from, 3 pots, if you will, the Canucks could choose names from. Which one do you think, given the demographics of this roster and where everybody is, can they go down a David Carl, Manny Malhotra, Mike Vellucci route, guys with no experience but good resumes? Do they go with second chance guys like Jay Woodcroft and the like? Or do they go tried, true hockey men, old guy category, Laviolette, Gallant, and the likes of those guys? Which do you think fits the Vancouver Canucks the best?
If I'm handicapping the race right now, I probably am establishing Manny Malhotra as the favorite. In-house already, Jim Rutherford has acknowledged that he's going to get on the short list. He's done a terrific job down in Abbotsford. He's familiar with these players and the prospects that he has helped develop and get to the National Hockey League. And we know 16 guys touched both AHL and NHL ice in the Canuck organization this year. So I think there's a world in which you could turn to Manny Malhotra, and for the people at the back that are screaming, first-timer, no experience, look, Manny was a high NHL draft pick. This guy has worked as an assistant in both Vancouver and Toronto, 2 of the toughest markets. He's a smart guy. He's prepared, obviously. He's done a nice job in Abbotsford. The experience of a first-time head coach, what could the game throw at Manny Malhotra at this stage of his career in his mid-40s that he hasn't seen before? But if you have that concern, I'd love the Canucks to go and find that established coach that has been a head coach in the National Hockey League that could work as a mentor but not be the head coach. And I know Rick Bowness isn't looking to get back into coaching at this stage, but that kind of guy, I see Claude Julien on the bench in St. Louis these days. Talk about experience and cup pedigree and all that kind of stuff. And so there are ways that you can insulate and support a younger, newer head coach, but also turn to him and give him the keys. And so I do wonder if that's the path ultimately. But if this is Jim Rutherford's decision, at this stage of his hockey life and his career, can I see him turning to a first-time guy?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure.
How about Alain Vigneault as that senior assistant?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he wants to get back into the grind.
Hey, he may want to.
No
and
chance.
He coached Manny. We know the respect he had for Manny here.
His feet are up,
Why
and he
do
is
you
comfy.
continue to shit on my Alex Burrows and Alain Vigneault coming home dreams here, Blake Price?
I just don't think it's happening.
Okay, so Jeff, hear my mouth on this one. Laviolette. Rutherford hired him. They won a Stanley Cup in Carolina, so there's history there. Established NHL coach, right? No training wheels. He's not learning on the job. Has coached 6 franchises already. Probably can't afford to be too picky anymore, and in that regard, likely going to settle for, a good established contract, but not break the bank money. Does he align? Does he satisfy all camps? Ownership, management, previous experience, know him, cheap enough, can get him.
My gut says that it's just not the right fit for this group right here, right now. And I say that fully aware of the history with Jim Rutherford. It is wild, guys, though, the cachet that you get when you win a Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 19 years since Peter Laviolette won the Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm.
2006.
Yeah.
And the same went for Mark Crawford and Ken Hitchcock and John Tortorella. They get the cup. They keep getting chances.
Glory lasts forever, Jeff.
I guess so. But there's no statute of limitations on that. And look, Laviolette, the winningest American head coach, this guy has guided teams, 3 teams to the Stanley Cup. Won it once with Carolina.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a proven track record. He knows how to win. I don't have a lot here to knock Peter Laviolette. I'm speaking from my guts telling me
He's
that
just not warm and fuzzy. Yeah, like he's just not a people person.
And I don't know the reasons why when it comes to geography. Again, he's American. Not that that prevents a guy from crossing the border and coaching here, but he's always worked in the East, right? Like, is Nashville as far west?
I believe so.
He has worked for
Well,
whatever.
Surely geography doesn't matter.
No.
You think there's an advantage to knowing the division, though?
I think, yeah, institutional knowledge. And again, it's the information age. There are very few secrets. Peter Laviolette has done some scouting. I'm sure he's done film work on the Vancouver Canucks, has worked with star players, like all of that. Like, those are things that are working in his advantage here. But, yeah, I mean, I think to a degree, that's what, like, if I'm checking off boxes of what makes candidates interesting, a guy like Jay Woodcroft not that long ago was on the bench working and coaching against the Vancouver Canucks. He would have some intimate knowledge of the things that the Edmonton Oilers did to prepare for the Vancouver Canucks that I think could help him as he stepped into a job here if he turns out to be the guy. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's some value in sort of that recent knowledge of working and coaching against the team that now you're trying to land the job with. Here.
How about another second chance guy, guys? John Cooper is going to be retained, and he would like to keep his staff together, I would guess, in Tampa. But Jeff Blashill, does he get a chance somewhere? And he's been under the tutelage of Cooper for the last few years in Tampa.
I wonder about the other Jeff there. Jeff Halpern is a guy that name, and again, the longer you work with a guy like John Cooper, you would think at some point you'd get a chance to spread your wings, and you'd certainly have the credit of coaching under arguably the best coach in the National Hockey League these days. I mean, most guys do get a second chance, right?
Yep.
And so I would think at some point that Jeff Blashill, I haven't heard his name linked to the Vancouver Canucks, but I would think at some point he'll get another opportunity, and much like Travis Green, he'll be better for the first go-round, even though it didn't yield the results that he was looking for.
It's an important decision for Jim Rutherford, though. That's the good news, is that I don't think Jim Rutherford, at his stage in his career, guys, wants catastrophic failure as his last go-around in the National Hockey League. I mean, you have to believe, and this goes to the rest of the offseason maneuvers here, Jeff, every rock will be overturned here to try to make this team better for next year. Whether they can be successful is the problem.
I'm not worried about every rock being turned over. I'm worried about everything found under those rocks saying no to the Vancouver.
That is a problem, too.
One of those rocks is going to be playing second-line center.
Something biting them when they turn over the rock.
Exactly.
Leave me under this rock.
Exactly.
I thought Jim was pretty candid when he answered Patrick's question about his own future here, and he took ownership of the fact that things have not gone the way that he had hoped. He was brought in to build this team up, and a year ago it looked like they were moving in that direction, and here they are now, and now they're looking for a new head coach and some component parts that are going to be difficult to replace, and he's been candid about that too. The cost of acquisition here this summer, they're going to go big game hunting, but ultimately, to what end? We'll have to wait and see. So, I mean, these aren't the best of times. I think that it's important that they acknowledge that, and that there aren't any sort of pretenses that, this past season was just a blip. No, I think the further we get from last season, that one's looking like the outlier now. And, it is going to be fascinating to see. Like, look, Patrick Allvin has to have some wins here this summer, and he's going to have some wins on the ice next year because it's the nature of the business. Yeah. And as you continue to churn, the coach, their coach, the guy that they identified, the guy that they pleaded and begged and opened the bank to stay here, he's gone. Now you move up the food chain. I think at some point here, there's going to be a fair bit more heat on Patrick Allvin as general manager.
As tough as it was for Canucks fans, and particularly those that liked Tocchet and wanted him back to hear the news, think of how it lands with Allvin and Rutherford. They had staked so much on this guy. Remember the early days, talk this, talk that, like they not only put him on a pedestal, he's like a deity up there for them. Like, he's going to be the culture guy. He knows what it takes to win. And like him voluntarily saying no to them. Wow. I can only imagine the ego blow that was for the two of them. Okay, we got to talk Abby.
Yes.
Just really quickly, I am like, they were prepared to go to the ends of the earth for Rick Tocchet.
They were.
Are they prepared to do that? Like, have they allotted that money now? Like, are they willing to do a big spend on somebody else?
I don't think 5x5 is the contract forever. I think that was the contract for Rick Tocchet. Like, I think
somebody with a good resume?
Everybody else, I think, falls short of that.
I would agree with that. But have they moved a big pile of cash in the organization that they've allotted for the coaching position? Maybe not to the extent. The other one is, and a new coach obviously is going to have a say in some of the people that he brings in and gets to work with. But I thought it was fascinating that Rutherford said, like, they had already approved for Rick Tocchet another full-time assistant coach. And I will never know now, but, what road would they have traveled and who would that person have been and what areas, was it as simple as power play? They had handed that to Yogi Saikovsky. He's still under their employ, but for how long, we'll see. So that's always, it starts at the top. They'll get their head coach, but how does he fill out his staff? I always am interested in the way that shakes down.
So as Manny tries to pad his resume, they get a win. They gambled on the split, so now home ice is absolutely in their favor. They could go for the sweep, of course, tomorrow night down in Coachella Valley, but they give up the early lead, but come back and win.
Yeah, resilient bunch. Like, give them credit. You start on the road. Coachella Valley opens the scoring on the first shot of the game, 1 minute and 36 seconds in, and this Abbotsford team is like Teflon right now. Like, big deal. All right, so we're behind. We got 59 minutes or 58 and a half. Let's go get it. And they turn that game on its ear. 2 goals just over a minute apart, midway through the first period. Jet Wu and Guillaume Brisebois scoring goals. And again, this just sort of speaks to the story of this Abbotsford team. I didn't watch them closely night in and night out down the stretch with that 13-game win streak, but these are the guys that did so much of the heavy lifting when everybody else was getting promoted to the National Hockey League. These were the guys that were there. They were the foundation and the bedrock for Abbotsford. And Danilo Klimovic also scored his first of the playoffs, and that's important too because this guy led the team in goals during the regular season. And I just think at this time of the year, you don't want to have your leading goal scorer go too long without doing what he does best and put a puck in the net. So now he can feel like he's contributing. Guys, 9 different goal scorers have scored the last 9 goals for the Abbotsford Canucks. Like, talk about team effort and pulling on the rope.
It's a fun team. Like, I was looking at their forward lines and defense combos, and there's attractive players sprinkled throughout the lineup. Terrific to come back as they did, and she loves as well. Who's last we talked, Jeff? We were talking about him staking a claim. Make sure you're in the number 3 in the organization. Okay, you're back at it tomorrow, huh?
It's a 6 o'clock start on a Saturday night, so a bit of a unique start time for a Saturday down in Palm Springs. But as you said, Blake, like a real opportunity here. You can't get the sweep out on the road without that first one. So barge through the door on opening night of round 2, do what you had to do, and now they've got a chance. I mean, all the pressure has been applied here. These shorter series, you take the first one, and the pressure goes right over to the other side. Coachella Valley was without Mitchell Stevens, who scored 3 of their 6 goals in the first round against Calgary. I don't know why he was out of the lineup, but I'm not sure that he'll be available. Canucks don't have to worry about that. They can't concern themselves with who is or isn't in the lineup on the other side. They have to some degree, I suppose, but they're just focusing on themselves. And I think, as I've watched these games here in the playoffs closely now, like Archdeep Baines has 4 assists, but I wouldn't say he's been dominant at all. Atu Ratu has been relatively quiet. I would spin that as a positive, that the deeper they go, the chances go up that those guys are going to have the kind of nights that got the attention of the big team that got them to the National Hockey League. And so, they win the opener against Coachella Valley basically on the backs of these guys that were in the AHL all season. The NHL guys, there were moments in the hockey game, but deeper this series goes, I think you would expect that those guys will elevate as well. So that's just another thing. But look, 3-1 lead. They protected it well last night. It was a pretty solid road performance. Give Manny credit. And I think a lot of people now, guys, are not just watching the Abbotsford Canucks, but they're watching them through this lens of, all right, this guy that's done a nice job behind the bench could very well be the next head coach.
And guys, Artie Shilov's 934 save percentage.
He's been awesome. He's been awesome.
It is a rehabilitation of his prospect status here a little bit. So
he can play at that level. We know
that. We know.
And
it's just the next level. And it's a must-win for Coachella Valley. You'd have to sweep all 3 games here in Abbotsford if you lose tomorrow. So, baby Canucks looking great. So is Jeff. So is the scorecard. RinkWide Vancouver tomorrow night after the game. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sakaris. Price. Wall Center.
It's the name of the show.
So historic.
Yeah. All those things. BZ4X. We're speaking in point form only. But really, if you take a BZ4X for a test drive, it's like a dissertation on fantastic driving. Full sentences, paragraphs. That's the feeling you'll get. Go to your local Pacific Toyota dealer, ask them for a test drive, and you'll find yourself signing on the dotted line. Why? Because it's a great car, but also because you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. You can get 0.99% APR financing right now, and you get to be in the HOV lane all day long, every day, because you're driving a 100% electric vehicle with that Toyota emblem on it, which means quality. ShopToyota.ca.
Jeff Marek is the host of The Sheet here on the Nation Network, noon Pacific time, and we start with an admonishment of Jeff today because
great.
All week long, The Sheet has been one big campaign to get Quinn Hughes to New Jersey. I saw your bit with Pierre Maguire outlining the close chummy relationship between Jim Hughes and Tom Fitzgerald going back to their days at Providence.
Yeah.
And then Wyshynski musing about Heeshear would be a bridge too far for Quinn Hughes. Jeff Marek, how do you allow this slander to go on your program? Have you any shame?
Hang on, let me send a quick text. Dear Tom, they're on to us.
Yes,
exactly.
Wish has got a horse in the race. He cannot be commenting on this.
Just remember, Vancouver Twitter, Canucks Twitter, undefeated.
This is, but listen, those are public discussions. Like, that's all out in the open. I can assure you, everybody is talking about this. And what would it look like? And could they do it? And what's the dynamic? And
you're not making this better, Jeff. You're not making this better.
Trust me. We don't want to talk about this.
I understand. I am not making any of this better, but you can't lie. Like this is what people are talking about it. I'm sure you guys have had these conversations as well. Privately, had texts, had phone calls. Like, could they even do this early and not even let it get to the expiration of Quinn Hughes' contract? Like this, like, honestly, I've always made the point, folks, that low-hanging fruit is still nutritious. And this, ladies and gentlemen, for what we do for a living is low-hanging fruit.
Well, what do you mean you can't lie? This is the NHL. The L stands for lying. GMs lie all the time. Owners and commissioners even more so.
I know you go back to the history of the NHL. It's the only league where the owners go to jail more than the players. I know. I get all this, Maddie. Like, I understand it. I understand the history of this league. I'm just talking about, like, you can't lie. I'm just saying you can't lie in the sense that everybody's having this conversation.
Jeff,
okay.
Quinn, everyone's talking about Quinn Hughes.
So you sniffed around on this. You reached out to a team, said, what would a Quinn Hughes
I knew I kind of had a feeling this was going to come up on our weekly hit this week. So just before I came on, I talked to someone with an NHL team, and I said, like, explain to me, like, what the dynamic would be right now. Like, I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but, like, let's just say it turns into we need to do this right now and not even, go through the season and attempt to re-sign Quinn Hughes. And he said, look, what you'd be looking at right now is your classic standoff. Like, right now, both sides, even if they entered any type of discussion, both would dig in their heels. On the one side, you have the New Jersey Devils, who would be saying, like, look, it's our job to make sure that we don't give you anything. And if you're the Vancouver Canucks, it's your job to hit a tape measure home run. Like, if you're the Vancouver Canucks, you're saying to yourself, like, look, we have, and in the truest sense of the word, a superstar, still under contract for 2 more seasons. He's someone that our fans enjoy. Thank you very much. He's a big piece for our organization. He's the captain after all. And the New Jersey Devils saying, well, you know what, we can wait. And there's 2 more years, and we're still a competitive team, and we can just wait this thing out. And I said, what would both teams be sort of looking at for a deal? This person said to me, well, New Jersey would have to clear out money, obviously. They're kind of right up against it. And he said, if you're the New Jersey Devils, you're probably looking at, again, this is sort of under the umbrella of make sure that you don't pay too much. He said, you're probably looking at, Dougie Hamilton plus Simon Nemec. Is if you're New Jersey, that's what you're trying to pay for someone like Quinn Hughes. Meanwhile, if you're the Vancouver Canucks, you're saying to the New Jersey Devils, like, this guy is a Norris Trophy winner and a perennial candidate for the Norris Trophy. If you want Quinn Hughes 2 years early, the conversation starts with either Nico Hischier or Jesper Bratt plus. Then we start talking about prospects and we start talking about picks. And he said, that's what your standoff is right now. Right now, there's no real pressure point. We have to get this done right now. That's what you're looking at. And those are probably the types of names that you would look at involved in a deal like this from both sides.
I was talking about how this is the
Devils
one time. I was talking about how this is the unique moment where a superstar with 2 years left still won't get true market value for what he is because now of the situation that has become so public. This is maybe the biggest misstep of Jim Rutherford being as honest as he is in this league of lying, is by him making it so overtly public, even if it was just understood anyhow. I don't know that the Canucks can possibly win the trade. Can they make it a fair trade? Perhaps, because all they've got going in their favor is that you don't get him at 26 and 27 years of age. You'll only get him starting at the age of 28 if you have to wait if you're the New Jersey Devils. To the point, that's not a lot of leverage when everything else is in their favor.
To the point about, I always find it interesting the way that we think that, the minute a manager makes something public, we think that that's the first time other managers in the NHL have heard this, like these conversations of like, Jim Rutherford's not going to say anything that, insert general manager X here hasn't already heard, maybe from Rutherford himself, or on the general manager's group chat, which we all know about. So none of it is a secret around the NHL. The only issue is now all of a sudden we have another sort of piñata to swing at here. And this one, unfortunately for Vancouver, involves their captain. You're right. Like if you follow the old, what was it, Sam Pollock's line, whoever gets the best player wins the trade, regardless of, how many different pieces are involved. You get the best player, you win the trade. You're not getting a Quinn Hughes. If you're going to do this deal now, like you're not getting a Quinn Hughes coming back. Now, I love Nico Hischier. Like I think that Nico Hischier is, for me, one of the best players in the league. He's not Quinn Hughes, right? There's not, and you can attach as many draft picks and as many, Seamus Casey's and Sadlaevs you want to any type of deal. You're not getting Quinn Hughes the other way. But I think that would be true whether the conversation about a deal was public or not.
Yeah. Devils owners also own the Philadelphia 76ers. Is
right.
that correct? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, how about that? Quinn Hughes for their basketball franchise. We get the Grizzlies back. And
can I tell you?
Franchise.
We
were going to play Marek and Wyshynski discussing this. Of course, Wyshynski, a noted Devils fan, and he's like, Hischier and Brat's a bridge too far. You know what? I don't have the stomach for it anymore, Mike.
Yeah,
Scratch that.
It's not. You know what? Can I do one of my favorite? Bill Waters told me this when I used to work with Bill, former AGM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. When you look at like a deal involving two sports, this was when Curtis Joseph's contract was up with the Maple Leafs. I think it would have been Don Meehan who would have been the agent. He said it was one of the most unique conversations he's ever had. He said, the agent came to me and said, your group here, they own two sports teams, right? He said, yeah. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Toronto Raptors. He says, oh, that's really interesting. He goes, how much does Vince Carter make? He said, $50 million a year. He said, which team brings in more money, the Maple Leafs or the Raptors? The Maple Leafs do. He said, okay, we'll take the Vince Carter deal.
That's pretty good.
It's a very, very creative. I've never heard a basketball player used as a comparable for hockey player negotiations, but bravo, well done.
Our first time to talk to you since Tocchet left us here in Vancouver. What did you make of
I was surprised.
What he said on his way out the door, the look for the organization, and then I want to talk candidates here.
Sure, of course.
So you tell me, where do you want to start?
I was first of all, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest with you. Again, like I don't know the personal situation, and again, so I don't want to come across too harsh because I don't know what's happening in Rick Tocchet's life or Rick Tocchet's world. Everybody has different motivations for things that they do, and I understand that. Having said that, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago here on your program, which is, the Rick Tocchet that we all know and remember as a player, fierce competitor, never take a step backwards, like first guy into the corner, first guy on every puck, first guy to stand up for anyone in the line, bro, like all of that, like that is Rick Tocchet. Rutherford himself said, like, look, like the history of coaching in Vancouver is not impressive. There are a couple, and he referenced, Pat Quinn specifically and Elaine Vigneault. But I think put it this way. If the story is how many coaches come and go, it's never a good thing for your team, right? Not that every team has to be Tampa with John Cooper, but still when it's the revolving door, things are not going well for your organization. And the one name that I keep coming back to when I look at, because it's not just a hockey move that you're talking about here for bringing in another coach to Vancouver. This is a situation where you have to have, I think you need a veteran here. I think you need to have, because this is you guys are right there. You guys know this, all your viewers and listeners do more than me. This is a really sensitive situation. Yeah. Right. This is not just let's bring in someone and someone from the American Hockey League. I love Todd Nelson. I think Todd Nelson should be in the NHL. I don't know that he's the right fit for this. I think you need someone that has had experience, and most specifically experience in a Canadian market, dealing with Canadian fans and Canadian media, understanding that it is a 24/7 job.
Ooh, you're really narrowing it down here then. Who
Jay Woodcroft. Jay Woodcroft. To me, and again, like you look at Jay and you say, like, because he's still like, I don't know, he did the deal with the devil. He still looks like he's like 11. He's 48 years old, but he's been coaching for 20 years. And coaching in Edmonton, where, you know, like the power play was on fire and everybody set records, and like
he's seen the shit show. You're right. He's seen the circus around McDavid and Draisaitl. He's seen it. So
100%, and everything about, you know, expectation falling down and all, and managing all of that, and being a positive face through all of it. You know, and reminding people. I remember, you know, when he was coaching there, one thing that always stuck with me, that I always catch myself and remind. I was doing it again last night, watching Edmonton and LA. He said, like, look, when you watch Connor McDavid, he always said, you know, don't be numb to this. Don't be numb to what you're seeing. Like, be aware of how great this is. Don't take any of it for granted. Like, he does have, like, as far as like the philosopher coach in the NHL, like, Marty St. Louis has his moments, and Paul Maurice has his moments as well. And listen, Jay Woodcroft is right there with them. Experience in Canadian market, experience on a number of benches, has been a head coach, comes from a family of coaches. Yep. That's the one. Now, he has interviewed. We know that he's interviewed with Anaheim. I believe there is one other team, at least one other team that he's spoken to. And there is interest around the NHL in Jay Woodcroft. And listen, Rutherford was saying, like, look, we don't want to drag this on. We don't want to lose any candidates. That's the one guy that I keep coming back to for Vancouver. Understands the Canadian market. And listen, he can coach offense. I know you can look at me and say, like, he had McDavid and Draisaitl, Marek. Of course, like, sure, wow, look at him. He coached offense. He had the two best offensive players in the NHL. But if you look at, like, all the players on that Oilers team, that one full season, who all set personal bests, like, he's a guy that can coach offense, can coach a power play, had really good power play in Edmonton, probably got a raw deal because of the goaltending, and he's sought after right now. If you're Rutherford, that's the guy that I'm calling right out of the gate. I don't know if he already has, but that's the one that makes the most sense to me, both on and off the ice.
AHL Championship, third round, conference final in 22, and then second round exit in 23 before he's fired early in 24.
Got goalied.
You wanted to talk about Jimmy. You wanted to say a word or two about Rutherford after the bombshell press conference.
Which one are you referring to? The first one?
Have to be
1.0
or 2.0? 2.0. They were.
We have to be more specific, as we say in the Atlantic. So here's my point about Jim Rutherford. In this era of frustrate, like, we saw a press conference with Boston Bruins, which left, I think, Bruins fans pretty frustrated. We had a press conference with Steve Yzerman that left Detroit Red Wings fans very frustrated. The one thing that I keep coming back to with Rutherford, and I know that sometimes it's what he says is a protein shake for all of us that do this for a living. I get it. And maybe your job is to keep things as quiet as possible sometimes, and I understand it. The one thing that I keep coming back to that I really respect about Jim Rutherford is he respects fans, because let's not forget, like, when you're talking to media, you're not talking to that person, you're talking through that person to get to the fans, because you can't call them all individually. I look at Rutherford and I say, he has a respect for the fans that a lot of other people in his position don't, because he refuses to bullshit them. Like, you ask him a question, he'll give you an honest answer, regardless of what the effects are of it. As a fan, as someone who does what we do, like, you really do have to respect the fact that he respects you enough that he's not going to BS you. That he's not going to say, I'm not going to answer that question, or, you know, give you a very rounded, polished answer that ultimately is a potato chip that leaves you with nothing but empty calories. I think I don't know that we paid enough attention to that. I know that I haven't, but watching these latest two press conferences, I've said to myself, he respects people enough not to bullshit them.
Well,
and
2 years ago, he tried
to for that.
2 years ago, he tried to self-muzzle himself. Remember, he said, "I have to zip it," but it didn't work.
You never have to apologize for being honest to someone. You may not, people like receiving it may not like it. I understand that, but I respect that about Rutherford. He respects people enough not to BS them.
I think there's some in Canucks Sports Entertainment that wish he traveled with the Dr. Evil Zip It. Every time Jim starts to talk, somebody interjects and just hugs.
But you know what? But you know what? But you know what you're getting, right? Mm-hmm. Like you know what you're getting with Jim Rutherford. Ask him a question, he'll give you an answer.
All sorts of. Oh no, we're gonna. Oh, we talk candidates. Yeah. You know what? We're down to our Easter egg. How about
or are we going to go where?
No. Let's talk about Jim Rutherford's bosses. Let's talk about Jim Rutherford's bosses. Have you heard anything on the ownership front here? Because
I have not. I just saw the one report. I have not.
Okay. Honestly, guys, Blake, you say this every time it comes up. It's almost not even worth having the argument unless someone hangs a shingle because it's a matter of semantics. Like if someone came to the Aquilinis and said, "Oh my God, like we love this team in the city, we're going to give you billions of dollars," the team would be sold tomorrow, right? And if someone doesn't meet their price, then the team isn't sold. Yep. Like that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're down to our Easter egg, which I have a real one, or I can just do a bookend admonishment. Because
host choice.
This is so rude to our guests.
Well, yeah, I mean he canceled on us last week. I was a little sore about that.
Listen to this.
I know. I was out of town. I apologize.
Because here's the thing, folks. Before we fired up and hit the record button, Jeff Marek and Blake Price, Jeff of the Great Feathers, Blake with
I get the
fewer.
Today. Trying to hang on to them.
We're sitting there complaining about their children and the weeks they put them through. And Jeff was referring to this as my 2010. And Blake's like, my 2007. Like they're hockey scouts or something. Your children have names.
Oh, Maddie, that's awesome. Oh, I love this.
And then they tried to normalize it and said, no, that's how the kids refer to each other these days by their birth year. I'm like, you've got to be. That's how the hockey kids may refer to each other, but not normal children out there. They have names.
She's got a well-rounded game. She's a little hot-headed. Needs to.
Here comes the scouting report.
So, Blake, watched her. Shows a lot of promise, lacks focus. Oh, she's a kid. Like all kids show a lot of promise and lack focus.
Does lack focus.
There's your empty calorie. Scouts
needs to mature her game. She needs to mature her game.
Yeah. Here is my Easter egg for you. There is one city. There is one North American city right now that boasts two of the big four longest tenured coaches. So NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League.
Oh, geez.
One city has two of the four longest tenured. Two coaches the longest tenured in their individual leagues.
I'm gonna need a lifeline on this one. I'm gonna need a call a friend on this one because my knowledge of anything that doesn't involve a round rubber thing going over a red line is embarrassingly bad. So I'm gonna call a friend, and my friend is Blake. Blake, jeez. I'm a 69. What year are you born here?
Put it this way:
74.
I probably wouldn't be asking this question if it didn't involve the NHL.
Oh, is Tampa one of them?
Very good, Jeff.
It's not Todd Bowles, though, is it?
No, here's the crazy. This is Kevin Cash of the Tampa Bay Rays is the longest tenured Major League Baseball manager in his 11th season. He's longer tenured than Dave Roberts with the Dodgers, and of course we got the lawyer from Prince George, John Cooper, who Breezeball says will be back in Tampa because I know there was a Utah rumor there.
I think we all wonder
the longest
about
tenured
Utah.
NHL.
I think we all like. I don't know. Like it's been kind of whispered for the long. Listen, when a new owner arrives, you wonder like, okay, so who are his hockey associations, and at what point does he start to bring in his friends? I mean, it's not exactly a secret that him and John Cooper and Ray Whitney, who's now with the NHL's Department of Player Safety for the past couple of seasons, are quite chummy. Can I ask you a question about MLB Tampa? Is that because the coach works for the right price?
I think so. I think it's also because that franchise can't afford to be paying managers not to manage. And, they do more with less. last few years haven't been their heyday, but given they have the shoestring budget, they're in the playoffs often. They're winning playoff series often.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a franchise known for stability. It trades out players after they get good because they can't afford
Who's
them.
the Rockies manager right now?
I have no earthly idea.
I'm just trying
That's
to
a
go
tough.
down.
They've
That's
won
a
like
tough
5
slog.
games all year.
That's a tough team to be. How'd you like to be that team right now, or anyone in the organization or on the squad right now? It's May 2 and you're out. Baseball's long. You guys know baseball's so long.
Who's the other
long.
city? Who's the other city?
Well, it's Tampa. It's Kevin
I thought
Cash
you
and
said
John
there's two.
Cooper. Well, if you go back to 2017, Boston had the same claim because they had Belichick and Claude Julien.
Yeah.
Tampa is Colorado's 6-25 this year, playing 1-9-4 baseball.
That's it, huh?
There you go. At least we're not the Colorado Rockies. Jeff, thank you for this. Have a great week. Catch up next Friday.
The bar is so low. At least we're not the Rockies.
There'll be less admonishments next Friday. I promise. I got it all out of my system.
I appreciated that. Signing off the 69 and the 74 here.
Garrison Price from the historic Wall Center, where you turn game night into a game weekend. Book your stay here at the Wall. Enjoy an exclusive Garrison Price rate. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for us by name. Some blackout date supply based on availability.
Well, we had ample opportunity to cheers our bogey juice yesterday out on the course. Alas, it's still early season, but really, who am I kidding? Could be mid-season, could be end of season. There's still going to be bogey juice flowing. That's the caliber of golf that we have. And that's probably the caliber of golf that you play as well. So why don't you have a new tradition? Drink some bogey juice when things aren't going your way. It makes the golf a lot more fun. Apple, crisp ginger, and top shelf vodka make this cocktail a delight. And you can have it as a cocktail as well. Pour it into some soda, and it's a great summertime drink. Use the code SP15. You get 15% off your order at bogeyjuice.com. And add a new tradition to your round of golf.
Selling himself short. He had a couple of occasions to imbibe in birdie juice yesterday.
Yeah, and about 25 occasions for bogey juice. Yeah.
That is a ratio I think is going to maintain through the season. Whitecaps will not, sadly, host the CONCACAF Champions Cup final after Cruz Azul defeats Tigres last night. So June 1st in Mexico City at, what do they call it? Estadio Olimpico?
Estadio Olimpico. It was a Canadian player who commits a handball in the box called by a Canadian referee, preventing a game from being played in Canada, like an 80th minute penalty kick. And that is the deciding goal. I watched the last 20 minutes of the game. There was, honestly, neither side played soccer. It was all just hopeful long balls that they were trying to get under. Like, it was, what I'm saying is, I don't know if Cruz Azul plays like they play all the time, plays like that all the time. But if what I saw is indicative of Cruz Azul, the Whitecaps look pretty good.
Caps by 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're back home tomorrow to face Real Salt Lake at BC Place, 6:30. They're unbeaten in 9 with a 5-point lead over Portland in the MLS West. And when this game is in the books, they'll be roughly a third of the way through the MLS season. It'll be 11 games down out of 34.
Real Salt Lake's only 4-6 on the season, but they do have a couple road wins, so they're plucky when they're away.
And good on the Caps for digging this out. They are the only club to have defeated Lionel Messi in each of the first 2 meetings against the GOAT. And he has also never scored with Andres Cubas on the pitch.
And
of course, that's South American as well, right?
That's club and country.
Club and country.
So
basically, they own Lionel Messi.
If the Whitecaps get even a single point out of this weekend's match, they will already be past the halfway point of their point total from a year ago.
It's incredible.
At the 1/3 mark.
Yeah, and there's rumors they have their eyes on a Serbian midfielder, according to Glass City. Petar Stanic. Have you seen this?
No.
9 goals, 7 assists across all competitions for TSC Baka Topola.
Okay.
£2.5 million.
All right.
Anyways.
Never know.
Business of getting better never stops.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still no Gold or Laborda for this weekend, obviously. Hopefully they're...
Are you calling the game?
No.
Oh. Canadian Soccer Hall of Fame this week as well. Christine Sinclair got in, believe it or not.
Does she have the
Diana
cred?
Matheson as well, yeah. I think they were just waiting for Christine to retire, and it was like, okay, you're in. Warriors, Vancouver Warriors, come out and play in Buffalo tonight. They faced the two-time defending, reigning NLL champion Bandits. Vancouver's won 7 in a row, have not lost since the trade for goaltender Christian Del Bianco. Game 2 goes Sunday, 6 o'clock at Rogers Arena. And if you see a 6'9" younger gentleman pacing nervously through Rogers Arena, biting his nails, living and dying on every possession, that's our intern, Jaden Teja, who works for the Warriors.
And he's living and dying with everything that happens.
He'll have a seat. He just won't use it. And I'm sure that'll be the case for a lot of lacrosse supporters. This is the biggest game in Vancouver's NLL history. And it could be a game that sends them into the final if they manage to win tonight in Buffalo and come home with a series lead in the best of 3.
TSN 5 at 4:30 p.m.
BC Lions have opened single-game ticket sales for the 2025 schedule. Folks, that includes the kickoff concert game June 7th versus Edmonton at BC Place. We tell you this because the game sold out last year, more than 53,000 on hand. They have not announced the musical act, but we anticipate that will come shortly. And if it's anything like the last 3, it'll be an act that draws a crowd.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the genre choice for Mardoman this year.
Do you think they'll go rap? Do you think they'll go off rap after 2 years in a row?
Yeah, that's my curiosity. I don't think they've had any complaints about the hip-hop acts in the last couple of years, so they might just go back to that well. But, yeah, maybe they'll mix it up.
Whoever it is, it's got to appeal to young people. Right, that has been...
Well, LL Cool J wouldn't really be appealing to young people, per se.
LL Cool J appeals to all demographics, Blake.
Oh, I don't know that the 18-year-old hip-hop fan knows who LL Cool J is, do they?
Whoa.
What?
The god LL Cool J?
Do you think they do?
I mean, we're talking about, he's OG.
I know. Do you think kids know OGs these days? As you say, most of them understand that history began when they were
arrived
born.
on the spot.
Yeah.
Mama Said Knock You Out. You don't think that song has...
I mean, it
longevity?
means something to us. I don't think it means something to them.
LL's also on, is it one of the CSI shows?
He was at one point.
He's an actor as well. Anyways, look forward to the big announcement from Amar Doman and the BC Lions. And the Vancouver Canadians lost 12-2 last night. But the legend of Arjun Nimmala continues to grow. I got a text from a friend of mine. He said, I just stepped into the stadium and saw Nimmala hit a long home run. Yeah, his league-leading 6th home run of the year for the Canadian shortstop and the Blue Jays' #1 prospect. He is the youngest regular player in the Northwest League at 19 and a half years old. Keegan Matheson, the Blue Jays beat writer for MLB.com, told us before the season began, I shouldn't say that, before their home schedule began, that we'd have him for most, if not all of this season because he's just so wet behind the ears. If he keeps this up, we're going to lose him to Double-A. So get on out and see this baseball prodigy, Arjun Nimmala.
We could be talking about a Bo Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero kind of guy that is making his debut at the age of 21, 22. And, years down the road, you're going to be doing the old, I saw that guy play.
Absolutely. Nooner today. And if you're listening or watching this and you plan on going to the Nooner, you're late. Get yourself to the Nat. 1 p.m. start tomorrow. And then Sunday, Star Wars theme for May the 4th. Get your tickets, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Thursday. Now that Rick Tocchet is gone, should the Canucks keep Elias Paterson? 2,000 votes on this question. Wow. Yes or no? What did the people say?
I think they still said no.
They said no.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised.
60.
54. Thomas, we've lost JT. Now talk and probably pretty soon Quinn. Nobody can work with him. He creates dysfunction and chaos in the room. Get rid of him ASAP before July 1st. James, if they trade EP40, they admit they are tearing it down to the studs and doing a 5-year rebuild, likely losing and having to trade Hughes and Wayne. For those saying no, please provide an answer on who you expect to replace him with. Real answers, not just the anyone, whoever. It's a very good question, Wayne. Believe it or not, I do not have an error or an omission from yesterday's program.
I had one. I had one, and now I have forgotten it. It was on me, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Self-reporting.
But I don't have it in my back pocket right now. I apologize. I thought about it yesterday. I was like, oh. And I didn't write it down.
He needs to work on his preparation.
Wow.
His practice habits.
My brain is only my brain.
He needs a big summer.
All the preparation in the world won't access my brain.
Well, you can write it down. Or
I was golfing. I was on the golf course. Come on.
Just tell it to me. I'll remember.
I don't want to tell
how
you.
I delight in your
I like to
errors.
go in fresh. I like to surprise you.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you carving out some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Live, many of those platforms, noon Pacific time. And, of course, support the community sponsors we keep telling you about and keep it local.